Welcome back to Pizza and a Football Argument. This is our second edition. This is Ty Barrett, and my name is Chad Conine, and for the first time this week we have Jacob Robinson joining us.
Howdy.
By the way, the pizza this week is from Shorty's Pizza Shack, one of our favorite pizza establishments in town. We have a buffalo chicken pizza and pepperoni pizza. Those were the two pizzas on the machines. When you look at the computer rankings, computers don't like Baylor as much as people with eyeballs like Baylor at this point. So I guess the question we're leading off with is why should Baylor be ranked, let's just say ahead of Texas Tech at this point? Because I'll go ahead and make the argument, I'll put it out there, that Texas Tech has beaten a ranked team, and they've beaten a team that's beaten a ranked team. And Texas Tech went to West Virginia and beat West Virginia, which is something that number 11 Oklahoma State couldn't do earlier in the season. Now Baylor has beaten a team that beat a ranked team because they beat West Virginia at home in Waco. So given those factors right there, I can sort of make the argument that Texas Tech should be ranked ahead of Baylor. What do you guys think?
Here's the reason why Texas Tech should not be ranked ahead of Baylor. They're just not as good.
Amen. Amen to that.
Based on what evidence are you making that claim?
Take Iowa State, okay? Baylor blows out Iowa State.
No contest.
And
I'll give you, it was at home.
Was at home.
At Floyd Casey.
But Tech struggled against Iowa State. And Baylor,
And this is an Iowa State team that you can't pass off as the typical Iowa State team. This is an Iowa State team that beat Texas, and for all intents and purposes, beat Texas, and gave other teams a run for their money.
Right.
And Baylor stepped in and said, not only are we not going to let you beat us, we're not going to let you even come close to beating us. Your only touchdown is going to be in the last minute against the third-string defense.
Sure. Well, that sort of leads into my second question, which is, does margin of victory matter? Because I tell you this much, I got to cover both of those games, Texas Tech, Iowa State one weekend, and Baylor, Iowa State the next weekend. And I'll tell you this, Iowa State got dominated on both occasions. They got doubled up in yards at Texas Tech. They lost by 7, but they scored a late touchdown. They would have lost by 14. And I realize losing by 14 is no comparison to losing by 50.
Or 64.
Right. Yeah, 64. You're right. I'm sorry. But nonetheless, they got dominated on both occasions, and they had to come to Waco a week after getting doubled up in yards.
Right.
How do you get up for a game like that?
Yeah.
So I'm saying that you cannot look at margin of victory because the way variables happen.
that anyone who's watched both teams play at this point couldn't in good conscience say that Texas Tech is a better team. And if the computer can do that, that's fine for the computer.
Right.
But I don't know any humans that are objective that can do that.
But I'm probably not an objective human.
Right. And we're probably not objective humans.
I've watched both teams play about as much as you can watch both of them play. And there's no doubt that Baylor just stomps on people from the get-go, But I've seen Texas Tech on 3 occasions, face a game where momentum was not going their way and turning momentum around to where it was going their way.
Sure.
And I feel like there's a lot to be said in the real world of college football for being able to turn momentum.
And Baylor only has one game like that.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point for Baylor. We may only have one game like that, but we in the past and historically haven't had games like that.
And let me say, by the way, that I think Baylor should be ranked ahead of Texas Tech. I don't want to hear any homer talk. Chances are we're not going to get to see Baylor play Florida State and Alabama and Oregon and whatever teams you want to put up there. Ohio State,
a Fresno State,
Auburn. You can put Auburn, A&M in there. Fresno State, Louisville, Central Florida now is another team we have to be aware of. Next year there will be a playoff, and so you can look forward to if your team is in the top 4, then you're going to get to potentially see them play 2 of the best.
Mm-hmm.
If you could design the college football playoff, how many teams would be in it?
No more than 8.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I say 18 playoff.
Why? Why no more than 8?
Well, how many games do you expect the college football team to play?
I don't want to hear that argument. That's not the argument. How many teams deserve to have a shot at the national championship?
Okay, if we were going to say, then maybe this is a way to do it. every year we have no specified number of teams that are going to make it, but just we're going to look at the top 10 to 15 teams, and we're going to see which of these teams deserves to have a shot at the national championship and form a playoff, and maybe an odd number and a team that's exceptional gets a bye. But if you're going to just off the criteria of which teams deserve to play for the national championship, that's the only fair way to do it. If
So
you
your
want to be
suggestion
pragmatic,
is to
if you
play
want
it
to
by
be-
ear each year.
If you want to be pragmatic,
Let Condi decide.
if you want to be pragmatic, then I say you pick a number like 8 and take things like scheduling, travel, how quickly are you going to turn these games around, where are you going to play these games, are these going to be bowl games that are supported by organization?
Now,
or
wait,
is the
let me
school
pull
gonna
you
play
in
these
again, because you're talking about logistics here.
And I'm saying,
And I'm just saying, how many teams
And I'm saying-
have a shot at the national championship, and do you want to see play for it?
sure, if that's then I will say 4.
Wow, I have to totally disagree with you there.
I will say the top 4. I will say
What I want to
name
see is
for
I
me-
want to see the top 16 play for it.
Name for me a year in the past decade where you felt like the person who won the national championship was outside of the BCS top 4. I mean, that a team outside of the BCS top 4 should have been playing for the national championship.
Well, I mean, your own precious Baylor Bears beat the number 1 team in the country, and they beat the number, what was Oklahoma State when they came in here?
No, 9, 11.
Yeah, they were red
11.
hot, right?
Yeah, it was top.
When
top
they go
12.
and they play UCLA in the Holiday Bowl and they kick their butt.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how many teams were playing better football than Baylor at the end of the year last year?
Sure, but did Baylor deserve to be playing for the national
If,
championship?
yeah, if it's a 16-team playoff, absolutely I'd like to see what Baylor would have done in that. Because you get to this year, and they're ranked number 5 in the country with basically the same team.
Right.
And it's like, well, how do you know? But if they got to play in that group last year, then you maybe know a little bit better.
I say, yeah, I'm an 8 to 12 person, mainly because I don't like fighting, so I'm just going to split the difference. But also, I think 16.
Jacob, it's pizza and a football argument.
I've got pizza. I'm
Emphasis-
happy.
It's not
emphasis on the
not
argument.
pizza and rainbows.
I thought the
It's
emphasis was
not
on
pizza
pizza.
and unicorns.
No, I think 8 to 12 mainly because if you look at 16 teams, you're playing 4 games, right?
Mhm.
So that's 4 weeks
Mhm.
added on to the end of the schedule. So you're now, and I'm not talking about like wear and tear on the players. I mean, they're football players. They're going to play 16 if they want to play in the NFL,
Right.
and more if they want to pursue that. But I say if you look at 4 weeks, 4 more weeks of football. Sounds awesome in theory. I think that's great. But then you start eating into, you already have enough problems with all of the bowl games that will still be around, with getting all this TV time. You know, you have all this stuff, and essentially you're taking the main bowl games now, the ones that are going to be most hyped up and the ones that are going to be most exciting are going to be 2 weeks apart, 3 weeks apart, you know, and you're going to have to sit and wait. And these teams that are going to be great,
But the waiting,
I mean, it's
the
part-
waiting is the
look,
best
it's
part.
part of the game.
Tom
So-
Petty was wrong. The waiting is not the hardest part. It's
So,
the best part.
Let me
Yeah.
ask.
I just don't know if it's good for the sport for us to sit and wait.
Oh, you guys are crazy.
Let me ask
You
this.
guys are crazy.
Let me ask this.
15 ball games is what we're talking about, that we would get
I mean,
15 meaningful, do or
Well,
die ball games.
even with 12, it's 1 less. Everybody plays 3.
You know, I would argue that we have a playoff every week, and if you win your game, then
This sounds like an Art Briles answer.
rarely are undefeated teams left out of the national championship.
Well, we had to cut out a little bit there because we broke up into a fist fight. But hey, it's pizza and a football argument. So-
Right. Pizza and a fist fight.
But we're all better now. We're friends. We've agreed that 16 is the perfect number.
Uh-huh.
And so anyway, thanks again to Shorty's Pizza Shack for some great pizza today, and thank you to Ty and Jacob for putting up a good argument and pizza and football argument. We'll see you next week.